Hello everyone, welcome back to the new lecture. So in this lecture, we are going to discuss about the types of fire extinguishers. So let's start. So there are several types of extinguishers, each designed to tackle specific types of fires. Choosing the right extinguisher depends on the classes of fire and the environment in which it is used. So already I have uploaded a video on classification of fire. So if you have not seen that video, so first click the above link and watch the video on classification of fire. Now here you have to remember there are 5 main fire extinguisher types. First one is the water extinguisher, foam extinguisher, dry powder extinguisher, CO2 extinguisher and wet chemical fire extinguisher. Now let us discuss each types in detail. So the first types of fire extinguisher is water extinguisher. Okay. So all of you know that water fire extinguisher are the most common extinguisher type for class A fire risk. Okay. Class A fire involves ordinary combustibles like wood, paper, cloth, etc. Example, in an office environment, a water extinguisher would be used to put out a fire caused by burning paper or furniture. Okay. Now here they have given that where we have to use actually the water extinguisher. So as I told you in starting, basically it is used for class A fire, means organic material such as paper and cardboard, and here some example is given: fabric and textile, wood and coal. But you have to remember, never use fire extinguisher for electrical fire. Why? Water is a conductor of electricity, all of you know. So using water on an electrical fire could result in electric shock and putting the person using the extinguisher at serious risk. So never use water extinguisher for electrical fire. Even do not use it for kitchen fire also, because water and hot oil creates a dangerous reaction. So when water is applied to hot oil, it immediately turns to steam, causing the oil to splatter and potentially spread the fire or cause burn. Okay. And one more point is given, that never use water extinguisher for flammable gas and liquid. Why? Because remember here, water can spread flammable liquid instead of extinguishing them, because as many flammable liquid, example gasoline, alcohol, are lighter than water and float on its surface. So pouring water on a flammable liquid fire often result in the fire spreading over a wider area. Okay, so never use flammable gas, even flammable liquid for water. Now here for water extinguisher, you can see their label color is given bright red. Now the question is how the water fire extinguisher works. So simply, when the extinguisher handle is pressed, water stored under pressure is released through the nozzle. So then the water steam is directed at the base of the flame to ensure the fuel source is fully covered and cool. So the water absorbs heat from the burning material, lowering its temperature below the ignition point, which prevents it from producing flammable vapor. And the lower temperature of the fuel reduces the reaction rate, gradually slowing down and eventually stopping combustion. Okay, so by cooling the material thoroughly, water prevents reignition and making the fire less likely to start up again once extinguished. Okay, so in this way the water fire extinguisher work. Now we'll discuss the second types of fire extinguisher is foam fire extinguisher. So as I already discussed, that foam fire extinguisher are most common type of extinguisher for class B fire. Means if there is a fire, class B fire is what? Class B fire are generally fueled by flammable liquid. Okay, So foam you can use, but also work on class A fire as they are water based. Okay, so you can use the foam fire extinguisher for class A and class B, both fire. As I told you, class A fire are fueled by solid combustible material and class B fire are fueled by flammable liquid. So you can use it for both. Here it is given same way. A foam extinguisher is used for organic material. Some example is given, and even you can use this foam extinguisher to extinguish fire flammable liquid like paint and petrol. But never use the foam extinguisher for kitchen fire. Why? The reason is what? Remember, foam extinguishers can cause a dangerous reaction when applied to hot oils and fat. The water in the foam can convert to steam rapidly, causing the oil to splatter and spread the fire. So never use it. Even never use this foam extinguisher for electrical fire also, because foam extinguisher contain water as a key component, so which can conduct electricity. Okay, so using a foam extinguisher on electrical equipment can lead to electric shock, putting the person handling the extinguisher at seriously risk. Okay, and then don't need to use it for flammable metal, means for class D fire also don't need to use the foam extinguisher. Okay, so remember this thing, because some metal like magnesium and titanium can react with water or foam, potentially causing explosion or making the fire worse. Okay, so never use it. And here the label color of this foam is cream. Okay, so in this way you can easily identify. Now the question is, how the foam extinguisher work? So simply here here also same thing. When the handle is pressed, when you press the handle, the extinguisher releases foam under pressure through the nozzle. The foam is directed at the base of the flame where the burning material or fuel is located. So as the foam is spread, it creates a thick stable blanket that covers the fuel source, and the foam blanket cut off the fire access to oxygen, a critical component of the fire triangle: fuel, heat, oxygen. Okay, as I told you, for fire we need three parameters. To continue fire we need three parameters: heat, fuel and oxygen. If you remove any one of the parameter from fire, so fire will goes out. Okay, so in this way the foam extinguisher work. Now the next type is dry powder extinguishers. Okay, so this standard dry powder fire extinguisher are also called as a ABC extinguisher because they tackle class A, B and C fire. So with the help of dry powder extinguisher, you can extinguish a fire. Suppose if there is a fire in solid combustible material or in flammable liquid or in flammable gases, so you can use dry powder for that. So it is given clearly where we have to use. Dry powder extinguisher is used for organic materials, plus you can use it for flammable liquid, or you can use this type of extinguisher to extinguish flammable gases. But remember, never use the fire this means the dry powder extinguisher for kitchen fire. Why? Simply the dry powder extinguisher are not designed to tackle kitchen fire involving hot oil and fats. When applied to burning oil or fat, the powder may not effectively smother the fire and can spread the flame or cause the oil to splatter. So never use it. And one more point is given that do not use dry powder extinguisher for fire involving electrical equipment over 1000 volt. Okay, because dry powder extinguisher contain a fine powder that may not be fully non-conductive, especially in very high voltage situation, means over 1000 volt. This can pose a risk of electric shock to the user when applied to electrical equipment or wires carrying high voltage. So never use it. You can use this dry powder extinguisher for fire involving electrical equipment up to 1000 volt. But if it is over 1000 volts, so never use it. Then you have to prefer the CO2. Okay. So next, you are also given never use the dry powder in enclosed spaces. Why? The reason is what? Suppose if you are using dry powder extinguisher in enclosed spaces such as offices or residential properties, so what happened? The dry powder extinguisher discharge a large amount of fine powder that can reduce visibility, so making it difficult to navigate or escape from an enclosed space during a fire emergency. That is why do not use. Even if you inhales, the people will now inhale we'll the see powder, the next so type can also be harmful to the respiratory CO2 system. So never what use is this? It. See, their label CO2 color is fire extinguisher. Blue. Even how the water are predominantly used same way for what the powder for electrical powder extinguisher work and are usually suppressing the fire extinguisher combination of providing computer string and interrupting the chemical reaction that sustain is combustion. It clear? Okay. Here they have given where we have to use same way for flammable liquid. You can use this in either in electrical fire also you can use this CO2 extinguisher. But remember, never use the CO2 extinguisher in kitchen fire. Okay? Especially cheap pan fire. Because CO2 extinguisher now work by displacing oxygen and cooling the fire. So for oil and fat fire, CO2 is ineffective because it does not cool the fire enough and cannot create a barrier to prevent the release of flammable vapor. So never use it. Even don't need to use the CO2 for this combustible material. Suppose if there is a fire in combustible material, so do not use the CO2 extinguisher, because as I already explained you, CO2 displaces oxygen, so it does not effectively cool the burning material. So in the case of solid combustible like wood, paper or cloth, the material may still be hot enough to reignite once the CO2 dissipates. So that is why never use. Okay. Or in flammable matter also don't need to go for CO2 extinguisher. So these here I have discussed the use where we have to use and where we do not have to use the CO2 extinguisher. Their label color is black. Okay, it is given here. And how this CO2 extinguisher works? Simply, carbon dioxide extinguisher work primarily by displacing oxygen and cooling the fire simply. Okay. Now finally, the last types of fire extinguisher is wet chemical extinguisher. So this type of extinguisher is designed specifically for kitchen fires, okay, involving oils and fat. See, same way it is given here. And where we have to use, you can use wet chemical extinguisher for kitchen fires involving what? Oil and fats. Even you can use it for organic material, means let's say if there is a class A fire, so that to extinguish that fire you can use the wet chemical, but the best option to extinguish class A fire is water. Okay. Now where we do not have to use the wet chemical, that is given here, like flammable liquid or gas fire. So never use this wet chemical extinguisher for flammable liquid or gas fire. Why? Because remember, wet chemical extinguisher are not effective at controlling flammable gas fire, even the flammable liquid fire, because water based chemical can cause the gas to spread or the flame to increase due to the volatility of the fuel. So never use it. And see, for electrical fire also don't need to use the wet chemical, okay, because wet chemical extinguisher contain water based chemical and water is a good conductor of electricity, we know that. So using a wet chemical extinguisher on an electrical fire can lead to the risk of electric shock to the user and further damage to electrical equipment. Okay. Even we cannot use this for flammable matter also. Suppose let's say, because flammable matter, all of you know, like magnesium, titanium and sodium react violently with water and water based chemical. So if you used a wet chemical extinguisher on a metal fire, can cause an explosive reaction. Okay, so never use it. Then label color is given yellow. Now the next final question is how a wet chemical fire extinguisher work. So remember, this this type wet chemical fire extinguisher basically work by cooling, smoothing and forming a barrier to prevent reignition. Okay, so when the handle is squeezed, the wet chemical agent is released through the nozzle, which is given, you can see the image in given in slide. So the extinguisher is typically pressurized with nitrogen or another gas which forces the chemical out when activated. So the wet chemical agent is discharged as a fine spray that cover the burning material. It is usually a potassium based solution that is highly effective for handling oil and fats in cooking equipment. So as the wet chemical agent is sprayed on the water, it helps to cool the temperature of the burning oil or fats. So this reduction in heat is crucial because oil and fat can reignite if the temperature is not lowered sufficiently. Okay, and the wet chemical creates a foam like layer that smoother the flame. So in this way, the wet chemical extinguisher work. So this is all about the types of fire extinguisher. Hope all of you enjoy the session. See you in next one.